All right, so uh, let's take a deep dive into the world of Nintendo.
Okay.
If you're here,
Yeah.
you're probably already pretty interested to see, how this gaming giant is doing right now
Mm-hmm.
and what might be next for them.
Right.
We're going to be looking at Nintendo and analytical review for this.
Sounds good.
And I think even if you're a big Nintendo fan like me,
Yeah.
there's going to be some stuff that is pretty eye-opening in this.
You're right. There is.
So,
Yeah. A lot more to think about than just, Mario and Zelda.
exactly.
Both big names.
We're going to look at some maybe surprising strengths,
Yeah.
but also some pretty serious challenges I think they have to deal with too.
For sure. It's a really interesting time for them.
Yeah.
One thing this analysis really highlighted was how Nintendo's just always been innovative.
Right.
I mean, look at the Switch,
Yeah.
that hybrid design.
Revolutionary.
But they've also had a hard time keeping up with the rest of the industry on some things.
I was going to say.
Like online services, that's a big one.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
I love my Switch,
Sure.
but the online experience isn't always the best.
Not really.
So, thinking about how they did things in the past with like the Wii
Yeah.
and motion controls,
Hmm.
did that kind of lead into how they made the Switch?
That's a really good question.
And were there any missed opportunities there, do you think?
I mean, the motion controls on the Wii were like a revolution.
Totally.
They brought in so many new people who had never really played video games before.
Yeah.
And it showed that Nintendo was willing to try new things.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they also learned a lot from that about balancing being innovative with, making things practical
Right.
and offering good support over the long term.
Yeah. So are they using those lessons now with the Switch?
Well, the analysis kind of suggests that while the Switch has been a huge hit,
Right.
yeah, the online part of it hasn't quite kept up.
Yeah.
There's been so much criticism of things like the friend codes
Yeah.
and not having enough options for voice chat,
I've heard about that.
and even the price of the expansion pack.
Ugh. Yeah, don't even get me started on the expansion pack.
It feels like a missed chance to make the online experience better.
Totally. And especially when you look at what PlayStation and Xbox are doing,
Right.
they're just miles ahead.
Exactly. And that actually brings us to another important thing the analysis talked about, which is third-party support.
Mm-hmm.
Nintendo really struggles to get games from other developers onto the Switch.
Yeah, compared to like PlayStation and Xbox, it seems like they're missing a lot of games.
For sure.
Why is that?
Well, part of it is that the Switch just isn't as powerful as those other consoles.
Right.
And then Nintendo also has this history of keeping things pretty closed off,
Can you give some examples of how that actually affects developers and players?
Sure.
Yeah.
So it often means that the Switch doesn't get those big AAA games.
Oh, right.
Developers might run into problems with the hardware, or there might be restrictions on playing with people on other consoles.
Right.
And so players miss out on some of the biggest games on their favorite platform.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a shame.
Yeah, it's a tough situation.
It's like that tight control,
Mhm.
gives them great games for like their own stuff.
Right.
But it also kind of turns developers away.
Yeah.
And then the players end up having less choice.
It's definitely a balancing act for them.
So speaking of control, an analysis also mentions Nintendo's vertical integration,
Oh, yeah.
where they make both the hardware and the software.
Right.
How does that compare to like Sony and Microsoft?
That's a big difference.
Yeah.
Nintendo doing that means they have total control over how their games are played. They can make sure everything is high quality,
Right.
and it creates a unique experience.
Yeah.
But it also maybe makes them less flexible
Right.
and could be part of why they don't get as much third-party support.
Yeah, it's like a trade-off.
For sure.
The analysis also talks about how Nintendo's release schedule for games is kind of inconsistent.
Oh, yeah. This is a big one for the fans.
Yeah.
I mean, waiting forever for a new Zelda or Metroid game,
Right.
it's hard to keep people excited when there's nothing new to play for so long.
Yeah, I totally get that as a longtime fan myself.
Yeah, I think the analysis is saying this is probably because Nintendo is really careful about how they make games.
They take their time.
They want them to be perfect,
Makes sense.
but the gaming world moves so fast these days.
Yeah.
So it's risky for them.
So it seems like they need to find a way to keep making great games, but also release them more often.
I think that's the key for them going forward.
Okay, so now let's get to the fun part.
Okay.
The opportunities.
Yeah, even with all these challenges, Nintendo still has a lot going for them.
So what are some of the opportunities that really stood out to you from the analysis?
Well, let's see. The analysis points to a few interesting things.
Okay.
One is that the Switch could still do even better.
Really?
I mean, it's already a success. Yeah.
Huge success.
But they could release like a new version.
Oh, a new Switch.
Yeah, with better hardware.
Oh, okay.
Maybe even fix some of those problems we talked about.
I mean, that would be amazing.
Right.
But wouldn't that make people who already have a Switch mad?
That's where backward compatibility is important.
Ah.
The analysis says they have to make sure any new Switch can play the old games.
That makes sense.
That way people can upgrade when they're ready.
Yeah, so you're not forced to buy the new one.
Exactly.
Best of both worlds.
What about the games themselves?
Yes.
So do you think Nintendo could do more than just those big franchises?
I mean, they have so many amazing games.
The analysis has a few ideas.
Okay.
They could bring back some classic games.
Oh, like remasters?
Yeah, bring in those older players.
Right.
And introduce those games to a whole new generation.
That's a great idea.
They could also focus on getting more games from other consoles onto the Switch.
Ports, you mean?
Right.
I would love that.
Yeah, it would help fill in some of the gaps in their library.
I mean, there's so many games I wish I could play on the Switch.
Totally. And what about those old Nintendo games?
You mean like the franchises they haven't made games for in a while?
Yeah, like F-Zero or Earthbound or Kid Icarus.
Oh, man. I loved those games.
Bringing those back could be huge.
Yeah, it's that nostalgia factor.
Exactly.
Plus, it might get new people interested who haven't played them before.
I can just imagine a new F-Zero game.
The hype would be unreal.
For sure.
But wouldn't making all those old games take away from making new ones?
That's the tough part.
Yeah.
They have to find a balance
Right.
between bringing back the classics and coming up with new ideas.
Makes sense. You can't just rely on the past.
Exactly.
What about online stuff?
Yeah.
Any ideas there?
They could finally get rid of those friend codes.
Please.
It's about time, right?
Yeah.
They need a modern system.
Like everyone else has.
Yeah, and they need better voice chat.
So many people complain about that.
Especially people who play online with friends.
Makes a big difference.
And maybe they could make the expansion pack better.
I mean, I would pay for it if it had GameCube games.
Right. They need to make it worth the price.
Yeah, so expensive for what you get.
The analysis basically says Nintendo needs to step up their online game.
Yeah, they are behind on that.
What about working with other companies?
Oh, yeah, like collaborations.
The analysis mentions Super Nintendo World.
Oh, the Universal Studios?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
They could do more theme parks?
More Nintendo lands.
Right.
That would be incredible.
It would really get Nintendo out there.
Beyond just video games.
Exactly. What about movies and TV shows?
Oh, man. A Zelda show on Netflix would be huge.
Right.
Everyone could watch that.
The analysis mentions that Nintendo could work with Netflix or Amazon
Really?
to make shows or movies based on their games.
That would be amazing.
It would reach a whole new audience.
And don't forget the merchandise.
Oh, yeah.
They could make so much money.
New toys,
Yeah.
clothes, all kinds of stuff.
Amiibos are already so popular.
Yeah, they could make even more of those.
Different kinds of collectibles.
That's a smart move.
What about mobile games?
Yeah.
Pokemon Go was massive.
Huge.
Could they do that again with other games?
The analysis thinks so.
Okay.
They could make mobile games with their famous character.
That would be awesome.
But they have to make sure the games feel like Nintendo games.
Right.
But also work well on phones.
It's a tough balance.
But Nintendo's good at that kind of thing.
So it's not all good news, though, right?
Unfortunately not.
The analysis talks about some serious threats, too.
Yeah, even with all these opportunities, it's a tough industry.
So let's talk about the threats.
Okay.
What are the biggest challenges for Nintendo?
Well, I think one of the biggest threats is the competition.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Sony and Microsoft are always coming out with new consoles.
Yeah.
More powerful ones.
It's like an arms race.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
Nintendo has to find a way to keep up.
Especially when a lot of people just care about graphics
Yeah.
and how much power a console has.
Right? It's like they're playing a different game than Nintendo.
Totally.
And then there's cloud gaming.
Oh, yeah. That's the future, right?
It could change everything.
How so?
What if you could play any game on any device
Oh, wow.
without needing a console?
That'd be crazy.
That's the potential of cloud gaming.
Do you think Nintendo could do that too?
I mean, it's hard to say.
Yeah.
The analysis doesn't really talk about that specifically,
Okay.
but it does say that Nintendo needs to be ready to try new things
They can't just keep doing the same thing.
if they want to stay in the game.
So competition is a big one, and cloud gaming is a big one.
Definitely.
What else?
Well, another big thing is that what people want in games is changing.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Younger gamers grew up with online multiplayer games,
Yeah.
esports, and games that look super realistic.
Right.
Nintendo has to figure out how to appeal to those players.
Without losing their current fans.
Exactly. It's a tough balance.
Do you think they'd ever make games for adults?
I mean, it's possible. The analysis says they could make new games or
Okay.
even change some of their existing franchises.
To be more mature
Yeah, they could also focus more on online features.
for games like Splatoon.
Right, they could even try esports.
Wow, that would be a big change for them.
Yeah, they're known for being family-friendly.
So do you think they would actually do that?
I mean, they've taken risks before.
True.
The analysis says they're not afraid to innovate,
Okay.
but it's hard to know for sure.
So we've got competition,
Mm-hmm.
cloud gaming,
Sure.
and changing tastes.
Right.
Anything else?
The analysis mentions a couple more things.
Okay.
One is that they might be relying too much on their old franchises.
You mean like Mario and Zelda?
Yeah, and Pokémon.
I mean, they're great games,
Of course.
but you can get tired of the same thing after a while.
That's what they call franchise fatigue.
Yeah, they need to make new stuff too.
And then the last threat is kind of out of their control.
Oh, what's that?
The economy,
Ah,
like the chip shortages.
right. Everyone's talking about those.
It's hard to make consoles when you can't get the parts.
And everything costs more now.
Exactly. So it might get harder for Nintendo to keep the Switch affordable.
Makes sense. And then if the economy goes bad, people might not buy as many games.
Right. That's a lot for them to think about.
Yeah, so many challenges.
But they also have those strengths.
They're amazing games.
And they're loyal fans.
And they're really good at coming up with new ideas.
So it'll be interesting to see what they do next.
I can't wait to see what the future holds for Nintendo.
Me too.
This deep dive has been amazing.
Yeah.
I've learned so much about Nintendo.
I'm glad.
I kind of want to go play my Switch now.
Me too.
Thanks for joining me on this journey into the world of Nintendo.
It was my pleasure.
And until next time, may all your power-ups be plentiful.
Good one.
And may your adventures be legendary.